Have you ever wondered how large enterprises track data changes? Welcome to the world of slowly changing dimensions. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what they are, what they're used for, and a bit of context in terms of data architecture. So with that said, grab a cup of coffee or get a refill, as I need, jump into today's video, and let's go. Alrighty, slowly changing dimensions. Let's jump into it. So, definition. So a slowly changing dimension is effectively a method to track changing dimensions in a data warehouse. Now, what is a dimension? We need to understand facts and dimensions. A fact is simply an event or a measure, and a dimension is something in its descriptive context. But what does this all mean? So I think it's better explained through a diagram. So let's have a look at a database schema. You may have a customer dimension table which has name, address, start date, end date, and then we have the linking fact table. So that customer is the slowly changing dimension. This is just a high level view of what slowly changing dimension is and what it looks like. Why do we need SCDs? We need them for historical analysis, audit trail, very important for compliance reasons, and also business insights. When generating Power BI reports, we can leverage these SCDs to enable a rich data analysis to better tell our story. Here is the meat and potatoes. What are the SCD types commonly used? Well, we have type 0, not really a type, but we have to include it where no changes are allowed. So here is a simple SQL Server example of a table, and we can see zip code is preferred not to change. Then we move on to type 1, and type 1 is a simple overwrite where we have a customer table and then we can purely update for whatever reason and there's no tracking there. Pretty self-explanatory. We then move into type 2 where we add a new row for each slowly changing dimension change. So as you note, in customer type 2 table, there is a surrogate key and a customer ID. Now, the reason for that is because with each new change for the customer ID, we need to create a unique surrogate key. That's the reason why we have that there. And we can see also the current flag. And then we see down below, we can update that. We need to also set the end date and the current flag, and then the insert statement down below. So then we move into type 3 where we add a new column. Now, type 3 is a little bit more restrictive as we only store one previous value. So in this SQL syntax, we can see create table, we have the primary key, we have current address and previous address. So we can only store one previous value, which may be useful for specific use cases where you want to uphold good performance, where you know there's only one previous value stored. But for the most time, we need to store more than one previous value. All right, moving into type 4 where we have a separate history table to track all our changes. Now, in this SQL syntax, we have customer type 4, we then have customer type 4 history, and we have a linking key linking those two tables. Now, you might be asking, what's the difference between type 2 and type 4? And they are very similar in nature, and it really comes down to your data architecture context about how you want to design the tables in terms of performance. So if you opt for type 2, you're going to have everything in one table, whereas if you opt for type 4, you're going to require a join to bring everything in. So it is very difficult to give you a black and white answer which to choose, but those are the limitations and the things to consider when choosing between different SCDs in your data architecture. Finally, we have type 6, which is more so of a hybrid combination of type 1, 2, and 3. From an SQL syntax point of view, nothing much changes. It is very similar to a type 2, but I guess in this data world, people are very specific and they like to label everything. So this is type 6. Now, I want to explain things in a high-level data architecture context. So how does SCDs fit into your ETL or ELT strategies? Now, let's say, for example, your manager asks you to update a table in real time. How would you go about doing that? And there are many ways. I guess the first way that comes to my mind is that, first of all, real time is a bit ambiguous. Let's say every 15 minutes. So if you're working in Azure, let's say you're working in Azure Data Factory, you can build a pipeline to update every 15 minutes. And what you would do is you would utilize watermark-based columns in your source system. So to kind of step back a little bit, let's say we have a source system with watermarked columns such as last modified by or last modified date. These watermark columns act as a way for our pipelines to differentiate when that data was last pulled. So as you can see here in the diagram, we have the source system with the watermark-based columns, and it moves into the staging area. Now the ETL process will compare staged records with dimensions using business keys. As previously stated, we have the surrogate key. Identify new and changed records. For new records, we insert into dimension, and for changed records, we just update the existing row. So this is, from a very high level, how SCDs fit into the data architecture. Choose your SCDs. All right, so I can't answer this question for you. It really depends on the context and the business use case for having a slowly changing dimension. But for the most part, type 1 and type 2 are the most commonly used in the industry. Type 1 obviously being overridden attributes without history. It's not very practical, but it can be good for speed and performance. Or you've got type 2, which is maintaining full historical records as previously stated. And people are getting into type 6, which is the hybrid of 1, 2, and 3. And there are different concepts of keeping record of slowly changing dimensions, such as temporal tables. I'm not going to get too deep into that. That's a whole different subject for now. But this has been a quick taster and a quick idea of SCDs as a whole. Hopefully this makes sense. And if you guys like the video, please share, subscribe, help the channel out, and wish the best for your day. Thanks, guys.